So
Don't look at that.
I'm Andrew.
Yeah.
I'm a local Putney-based person, but
Yeah.
a fairly busy businessman who has a very occupied schedule through the week. A lot of business meetings up and down the country, and yep.
Okay, so how long have you been a MeTime member for?
It's been about 4 years now
Yeah.
that we first got together.
Okay. And where were you before? Like in terms of your health, your fitness, and so on?
Like a lot of busy people, I tried to fit in my own type of training between work engagements, which frankly wasn't all that successful. Firstly, because it wasn't very regular, and secondly, because a lot of what I now know I was doing probably wasn't very helpful for me. It was also quite boring, so I didn't really do it very often, and so I quickly realized that I was gradually becoming more and more unfit. And the evidence for that was just being out of breath, not being able to run up and down stairs, walking, climbing, all sorts of physical exercise just became more and more difficult. Lots of aches and pains, some mobility difficulty. I then unfortunately developed a frozen shoulder situation, which is not uncommon for middle-aged people, but that also seemed to set me back. So I realized I need to do something very different. I need to organize my life just differently around being fit.
Okay, so in terms of going back to what you were doing or not doing, why did you find exercise boring?
I tended to end up doing the sorts of things that I could do quickly and effortlessly. So jogging on running machines and using a cross trainer and various machine-based exercises that were really only helping me in a limited kind of way. And as you say, were extremely boring. They still weren't helping me to lose weight. They weren't helping my all-round mobility, and they certainly weren't helping my strength. So lots of areas where that kind of activity wasn't particularly helpful.
Okay, cool. So you found myself and MeTime. Where? Sorry, how can I let's go back to like your first workout or your first appointment. Can you remember how you felt going into the workout or joining on signing up? Was there any fear or anything like that?
Yes, I am generally quite a confident person, but I was quite anxious because I'd never been with a trainer. I'd never been in an organized fitness routine. I imagined there'd be lots of exercises I couldn't do. And so for once I was quite stressed about something I thought I shouldn't be stressed about. I must say the first session was quite tough in a sense of doing things, motions, actions, activities that I'd just never done before. But I immediately thought these were probably the right things to be doing.
Yeah, cool. And in terms of like going forward in the first year or two of training, you said we've been together 4 years. Were there any sort of more immediate impact on your day-to-day life? Like you said, you struggled to get up, run upstairs. You have frozen shoulder and all those sort of things. Did you find the exercise was helping in the first few weeks or months?
Tremendously. So the first thing was just having more energy. So I just seemed to be able to extend my day more because I was able to get to places quicker and, walk faster, longer strides, all of those sorts of very fundamental things. But also I felt a lot more flexible. Some of the aches and pains went away. The frozen shoulder took longer to cure. It needed a combination of PT sessions and physiotherapy, but ultimately I solved it and it went away. But yeah, the immediate sense was of having a bit more mobility, a lot less aches and pains and stiffness, and the ability to do what I wanted to do with more energy and urgency. So yeah, quite soon it seemed to be working.
And how has this impacted your working life?
I just seem to do more and be more adaptable. So, for example, if I fly somewhere, typically if I was on a plane, I might get off feeling a bit stiff, might feel a bit tired when I was in an airport or trying to get to a business meeting. Suddenly those things don't seem to be there anymore. I lug my luggage around without too much effort. I run around from trains and planes and taxis without as much effort as before. I just feel I'm lighter, more mobile, more nimble.
Yeah. And how many sort of workouts do you think you average over the last few years you've been working at MeTime?
Well, as you know, we do 3 times a week,
Yeah.
and we space that out through the week. I'm a morning person, so it works for me to come in the mornings, and generally that fits in very well with my schedule, and I get going quickly afterwards and find we can fit it in very well. We do 45 minutes, which I think is a very good and manageable time period, and you can achieve a lot in that time frame.
And what's been like your achievements in the gym? What can you think back to when you started and what you used to do, and think back to what you do in present day?
Wow, it's just incredible. It's quite incredible. I had never really lifted weights before, and I can now lift all sorts of different weights and all sorts of different exercises. And if you'd said to me a couple of years ago you'd be deadlifting, I'd have laughed in your face.
You wouldn't even know what it was.
I wouldn't even know what it was. And least of all, I'd have been able to do it, and I'd have been probably scared of doing it. But that's part of the routine now, and I've got some goals. I constantly want to improve on those goals. As you know, it's a little bit competitive in the gym, and so in a good way, we compete a little bit against each other, and that pushes me on a bit and gives me something to strive for. So yeah, I mean, just things I'd never done before. And also on the cardio side, some machines I'd never used before and never experienced and didn't know how they worked and probably was a bit afraid of them. I can now master those, and I can go, if I'm traveling to another gym and know how everything works, I can replicate some of the exercises that I do in my routines and keep the continuity. So yeah, all round a big change.
Good. So I want to, so from not knowing what a deadlift was to what can you deadlift now? Just for, tell the world.
Well, I can
you remember?
deadlift 80 kilos
Yes.
now, which is, again, if you think about where I came from a couple of years ago, quite extraordinary. And even my wife is shocked when I show her the videos of me lifting. But no, look, you have to build it up over time. You have to be sensible. You don't want to do things that create injuries. And I think that lifting has been built up very carefully and systematically over time. And yeah, it's great to be achieving.
Even though you want to move quicker.
Even though, as a very impatient person, I would like to move quicker. But again, one thing I'm thankful for is that we're doing things in a careful and orderly kind of way, and cognizant of past injuries and past difficulties, and building those things into the routines that we do.
Cool. And just touch on also your visit to the doctor 6 months ago. Or 9 months ago, whenever, I can't remember exactly when it was.
Yeah, like a lot of people at my age, I have fairly regular medicals or MOTs, whatever you want to call them. And suffice to say, the key markers were in a way improved position in terms of issues like cholesterol, retention of fat, weight loss, obviously, is a big change. And again, it's pleasing to come out of that kind of test and not be getting told off for very bad habits and bad behaviours, and having to go on sort of some crash routine that you don't want to do. That health factor is built into the daily routine. That's really, really pleasing, and one of the big bonuses.
And how much weight have you lost in the last year?
Yeah, I've moved from about 95, 96 kilos down to just above 80. So again, on a progressive basis, this isn't a crash diet or an overnight thing. It is a careful, planned movement and change in diet plus exercise. But again, I think I feel a lot better for it, and I think it puts me in a much healthier place in terms of my overall physique and well-being.
Okay, cool. And like in terms of going where you are now, are there any sort of stories that you've got where in your day-to-day life you think, wow, I can do that now, or stuff like that, because you're now fitter and lighter and leaner and stronger?
Yeah, I think we've joked about one or two of these, but the one that stands out is in our home. We have in one room a very, very heavy table, which is actually partly a sort of made with stone, and I had to help. I moved that one day with another person, and my wife couldn't believe that I could just lift up one end of this table and move it across the room, because usually you needed a couple of people at least, and some burly removals men, but I just moved the thing with not too much effort. And she stood back quite shocked and said, wow, you couldn't have done that a year ago, you'd have collapsed afterwards. But no, that was, again, gratifying to be able to do those sorts of things.
Just little small wins.
Yeah, little wins that stand out.
Okay, cool. And what is it you love about coming here? I mean, obviously you've got the results and you're feeling fitter, you're feeling healthy, you're doing lifting tables and all these amazing things from where you were 3-4 years ago. But what is it that keeps you coming back and being consistent about actual MeTime specifically compared to like other gyms you've been to and stuff?
Yeah, I think for me it is the level of interest from you and from the team in me as an individual, rather than me as a client among many. And I think the fact that what we do is quite customized to my own particular situation and needs, and that's in a holistic sense, not just in terms of straightforward fitness, but health as well, and well-being and all those sorts of things. So the level of customization for me personally, I didn't experience that when I have experimented with other gyms. I was really more of a number rather than a person, and I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think the other thing is it's an atmosphere here where everybody has their own kind of different goals. They all come to MeTime with different situations, whether that's around weight loss or fitness or advanced fitness or whatever that condition is. There's an acceptance that everybody's different and everybody's achieving goals at the rate that works for them. So I think that personalization, that customization, that sense of, I guess, humanity is something that I really treasure. I think that's great. I think that's really good.
What else in terms of the atmosphere? Or
it's a fun atmosphere, obviously it is. There's a lot of banter. There's a lot of fun between the trainers and the other people doing classes and PT. You get to know a lot of people. We have a few social events, which again are great for social networking and comparing notes with others who are going through similar sorts of challenges. It's always good to do that.
Deadlift
You're
notes.
not alone, or trying to do some deadlifting or experience some kind of thing they've never done before, which is terrific and kind of spurs you on and makes you feel, you're not on your own.
Yeah. Okay. We'll do one final question, which is we love to ask everybody. If somebody was watching this very similar to you, busy businessman looking to improve their health, their fitness and so on, but doesn't particularly like gyms or a bit anxious about going to gyms like you were, what would you say to them? And they sort of seen us around. What would you say to them in terms of, us and what they should do?
I'd say come along and try. And I think that's another nice thing about MeTime. There's no sense that anybody is being pressed into becoming a member or participating. I think the engagement is always very informal and welcoming. Try it. It's an easy, accessible thing to try for a few sessions. Obviously, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But my guess is usually people who come along find a level that suits them, find a training system or a class or an individual trainer that works for them, just give it a try. It's not going to be intimidating. It's not going to be off-putting. You're not going to be embarrassed. And there's no obligation. This isn't like a situation where if you don't commit to 10 or 12, 20 sessions, don't even start. This is a flexible arrangement where you can trial and see what you like and see what suits you, see what fits, customize the thing for yourself in an atmosphere where everyone wants to help.
Cool. Thank you, Andrew. Perfect.